So, I think culture is very important. And I remember the time that while the brand book was getting made on what the brand should look like, Mohit and I were working on what our internal culture at the company should look like. And I think the reason why it's really important is because, as startups, we're constantly running. And, for us, it's really important that people who come to work are truly motivated by what they're doing, because if they're not, it will show in the output, right? You don't have the luxury of hiring too many people because you're always starved for funds.
Absolutely.
So whatever you have, those guys need to be super sharp and super motivated to do what they're doing. And which is where culture plays an extremely important role. So we had this 6 culture values in the company, and 2 of them were actually customer focused, and remaining 4 were all internal on how we would treat each other. What is it that we will celebrate? What is it that's completely unacceptable in the company? And we were super vocal about those points, right? Of course, as a part of induction, everybody was ran through those. But what we also did was that for a few of these points, we actually translated it to awards, quarterly and monthly awards, right? And I think people started understanding them by example. So for instance, one of them was, always get shit done. And I remember this one instant where we had our NPD guy where the production had to happen and lockdown had hit. And, roads were shut. And there was, because of the lockdown, he of course had a pass which had given him the essential pass and he could move around. But right outside his block, there was police standing. So he couldn't take his car out from there, and he couldn't leave the space either.
Yeah.
He actually jumped the walls of the gate, went to the other side, and then went to the plant, right? Now, the reason why it's important is because it was very easy for him to say, look, send pictures, as a lot of people do, right, on saying that this is what's happening right now, I can't step out. And hence, can someone else go and do something for me? Because everybody was also very scared at that point of time, right? But he just sort of said, forget it, it's my job, I have to get it done. He actually jumped off a high gate and got it done. And I think we started telling these stories, and these stories started becoming a part of our monthly and quarterly town halls.
Yeah.
And that kind of motivated the other person to do it. So I remember the first few instances, people actually walked up to the person that you really did this. Because and especially when the company grows, not all departments speak to each other. So it's a lovely way of knowing who the person in that department is and what is he doing, and what is the contribution that he's making towards the organization. And then these stories started getting celebrated, and once that happened, I think it set culture. The other thing about what was not acceptable in the company was very vocal. So there was this one time where someone was caught cheating.
Cheating as in?
So basically what had happened was there was a consignment of cartons, which is basically the shipper cartons, which had the wrong logo. We had 3 logos and had a wrong logo on it, and it got rejected by the warehouse team, saying that it's not accepted. And this guy, by the back end, kind of said, forget it, I've spoken, take it in. Not realizing he was relatively new in the company, so he take it in. And I used to order everything constantly, and we had these random checks, and the random check, just as luck may have it, I got it in my house. And I was like, how did this even pass? Because this was rejected, right? And we called the guy in, and I said, what happened here? He said, nothing, it must be a mistake. No, must be something, gone off, right? And I'd already spoken to the warehouse team where I knew exactly what had happened. So I gave him a chance to own up to it. He didn't own up to it. And we said, you're fired on the spot. We walked out and we had the whole conversation in front of the whole team on the floor on why he's been asked to leave, right? Because lying and being dishonest and doing things which is not correct is unacceptable to us. And I think it was these discussions that kind of laid the foundation of the culture. And it went from everyone, from junior folks to senior folks. There was a time when, for the first time, as founders, when you hire a top team, and all of them have come from their own legs of, and they're very, very acclaimed set of people who come, they started a culture of sending emails, which is largely saying, I sent you reminder 1, reminder 2, reminder 3. And it was so funny,
passive-aggressive emails, as discussed.
Multiple times.
And gentle reminder 1, gentle reminder 2.
Yeah, it was so funny, and we saw it and we let it go for 1 2 days. And at the end of 3rd day, I remember walking out and I was like, all 4 of you in the cabin right now. And they all walked in and I said, I'm going to have this conversation inside the room today, which is, I do not want this happening. We are not a person, we're not a big company that plays email. you'll get up from your seat and go and have a conversation with him. There's a problem. If you want mediation, I'll mediate. But I do not want the set of emails to happen now. And before you all leave, this is happening within the 4 walls today. Tomorrow it'll happen in open, in front of your team. So please make sure this is not repeated. So I think there's multiple times where we did this and we made it very clear on what's acceptable and what's not. And I think that kind of set the culture where I think junior folks had the courage to tell people saying, this is not who we are as the moms go. So you cannot behave with me like this, you know. And of course, both Mohit and I had an open door policy. My doors were always open. So if anyone had a problem, they could always come up and have a conversation with us. So.
I love that story.
That's it.
So my first boss was a woman. I still, of course, have a woman boss because I have a wife. But first boss was a woman. And one of the key things she did when she built the office was she put the engineering team right next to the sales team. And the reason was simple, because these guys are going to go sell that product out there. If there's a problem, they will come back to office and you won't have a room to escape to. You're going to be sitting right next to them. And just breaking down those silos, breaking down those walls. And so fantastic story. I think every founder should learn from that. And building that culture is all the stories about the guy jumping the wall. Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's what was like fantastic advice that we got, right? That culture isn't what you put down on your walls and on your town halls once in a while. Culture is actually determined by the stories people tell each other.
Yeah.
Right? And so we made as soon as that hit, that it's about stories, it's not about what we put down.
Yeah.
All the quarterly town halls and the monthly awards and going out onto the floor and talking to people, all of that became an idea of what are the stories that we can generate around our culture that helps propagate it. Right? And then once you get that wheel rolling, it can really see it flow down all the way to the junior most employees.
Yeah, that's amazing. So people were even following the culture, but you guys were really like emphasizing on it by rewarding the ones who were doing it right and by calling out to the ones who weren't.
You know what was the most surprising is when you rewarded them, they had no clue.
Yeah.
Meaning?
They had no clue. You know, because
it didn't feel like they were doing something exceptional, just for day-to-day behavior.
Yeah, they said,
Like
I would have done it. I had to get it done, right? So I just went and I think when you started acknowledging it, there was this deep sense of, a gratitude and then the fact that you got recognized in front of everybody. And that played such a huge part because they were like, okay, I remember there was one point of time where there was this person who walked up after getting the award, came inside and said, "Ma'am, aapko kaise pata tha ye hua?"
Yeah.
And I was like,
मुझे सब पता है.
I was like, we may not be speaking to you every day, but we obviously get information of how each one of you is doing.
Yeah.
And how each one of you is doing, right? So it just sort of made everyone feel very important. Like nobody felt small. So it was a lovely space.
So smart. You know, one of the biggest notes on this book called How to Win Friends and Influence People is, like compliment people in public but criticize them in, closed doors, right? So I think that's exactly what you did, and I feel like that's why your leadership style played out in such a fun, amazing manner. And it's a testament to what the Moms Company is today.
But, all that culture piece must have really played a big part because you were a small company in a pretty competitive market, right? I mean, there have been brands which have been around making creams, as you started your story with, all of that. So what really drove differentiation from your perspective? How did you stand out, as a small company in a large market? How did you stand out?
Yes, so there were a couple of things that we did very differently, and rightly said, I think when we were getting into it, we knew what we were getting into, right? Because the first set of questions that all investors asked us was saying that you're getting into a market which has the largest player holds almost over 90% of the share of the company,
Absolutely.
right? Of the market for it. And are you really sure you're ready to go head on against them? And this is the beauty of I think a first-time founder, if I may just call it, right? Where I think there's also, you're so naive, where you're like, नहीं वो नहीं देख रहे हैं हम कर लेंगे like हम कर लेंगे because there is a set of audience that I've identified for myself and हम करेंगे जो वो नहीं कर रहे हैं, right? And I think that's what plays for the entrepreneur, right? Like the deep desire and a deep faith saying that I can make it happen. I can bring the change that is really needed right now. And for us, I think the change was saying that the mums were beginning to change their behavior from buying chemical-based products to natural products. There were questions of safety of big brands which needed to be solved because you were asking, there was a brand that you were bringing home for your literally a 1-day-old child, right? So and it was a huge responsibility that laid on the parents at that point of time, and they wanted relief on, and someone telling them saying that, this is nice, this is safe, this is natural, this is non-harmful, and the consumer of today wanted reasons to believe you. And how do you create a world which gives them what they want, give them the reasons to believe the product you have for offering, and then build this whole ecosystem of reassurance where if they ever came to you, there was never a problem that they have, and which is where customer care came into picture, right?
Yeah.
I remember for the initial first, almost about 6 months, if I remember correctly, the customer care numbers were more than me.
Oh, really? How long was that?
6 months, almost 6 months.
Wow.
We went and physically
Guts.
delivered products to people's houses to get a first-hand feedback of what is it that you really liked about us. There were instances where we picked up the phone call to have conversations and made sale, didn't make sale. And I think we did this customer care numbers were ours for a long time, and then eventually we handed it over to the team. But a lot of other points where we constantly stayed in touch, right? So like on the Moms Co, we always had this property called Ask Malika Anything, which was on Mondays, where I would actually speak to the consumers. And there was never a team member who sent responses on that particular day. So I actually sat with them, and of course, very erratic depending on what I was doing. But I would answer each and every question that every consumer laid on that point of time. And I remember some conversations running out deep into the night from the Moms Co's handle, where I had deep conversations with moms who were awake and saying, I have this problem with to convince my mother-in-law that I want to do this versus I want to go back to work. And I had very deep conversations with them on Mondays, which ran all the way till sometimes at 2, 3 in the night as well.
Wow. Where were these conversations happening?
Instagram.
Instagram.
So there would be
Start as
questions.
an AMA, they would respond.
And
like
then-
that.
Just keep chatting with them.
on DMs, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
I think so it was this whole system of figuring out what the customer really wanted, giving them something that they understood and saw value for, and then building this whole reassurance system where, if you ever had something to do, we were always there for you, right? And I
Yeah.
think that kind of truly differentiated us because the larger companies never had that agility to create products so quickly, right? So like hearing them, we realized that pregnancy as a market is completely empty. So our first set of range of products for pregnancy, we thought we'll get confidence with the mother and then launch baby. The idea was to keep extending over baby, but very quickly we realized that, a baby for a mother is a baby for a very short period of time, but a mom's a mom for life. So how do you start catering for her needs?
So
and all
nice,
of it
yeah.
actually came from conversations with them.
Yeah.
And that kind of developed everything from a product pipeline to launches to campaign thoughts. Everything just came from them. And I think that's what truly differentiated us from anybody else.
So your single piece of advice to any founder, especially in the consumer space, would be to go listen to your customers,
Consumers.
You
right?
need to
Yeah.
constantly stay in touch with the consumer. I think the moment the founder loses connect with the consumer, that's where everything starts breaking in the company.
Yeah.
And I think the second add-on to what Malika said is be very clear what your brand is and isn't. The reason that we did all of this was, if you look at all the brands before us, everyone said, trust me because I am 100 years old, trust me because I'm doctor recommended, trust me because X. We went and said, don't trust us, right? Question us. It's our job to make sure that every question of yours is satisfactorily answered, right? Which is why that AMA made sense, because we said, I am the founder, I'm asking for your trust by being available and answering your questions at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? Don't trust my ingredients on my website. Actually go in. Every single ingredient, you'll see the source, you'll see its rating across the toughest toxicity databases in the world. Right? Don't trust me because I don't go via doctors, but these are all the other moms in your area who have used me. So our brand was very clear that we will not demand trust. We will earn it by all these small actions that we do. And I think that clarity of brand really helped drive the entire organization around it, including what we earlier spoke about, right? So I haven't heard of any other brand or company that has a core value of culture around being honest. We had that as our most important value. And the reason it was, we said, if we're asking moms to trust us and they can question every single thing we do, we're not going to go and claim stuff that isn't true. We're not going to hyper claim, right? We won't hide behind advertising words and legal jargon. We'll just be completely honest. And if we're that in every single interaction, then she should trust us. And that starts at home. So that starts only if we can be completely honest with each other within the company. Right? That's why there's a no bullshit policy. Right? So everything, if you're brand-based company. I think it works brilliantly if you're very clear what the brand is and you can translate that all the way to the culture and the team members and how each person is expected to act.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Really nice.
Yeah. What a competitive advantage of being a small company, right? I don't think, I mean, I'm not going to name your competitors because we don't want to give them any free advertisement. But I don't think the CEOs are, on Instagram lives trying to answer questions or putting their own phone numbers. They just can't afford to do that. But because you guys were so small, you had the guts to do that enough. And how all of those feedback translated into your product becoming better was just like, amazing. The time and dedication, a lot of care and consideration just really showed in how, the founders were performing. So amazing. Okay, I'd love for you to dive a little bit into the topic of mental health. This study came across from the National Institute of Mental Health that's saying that, a whopping of 72% of entrepreneurs find themselves grappling with mental health challenges. That's a staggering number, right? I'd love for you to talk about how you guys personally dealt with it. With the potential toll that entrepreneurship can take on your mental well-being, and being a husband and wife team, were the challenges easier or harder?
I'll answer the second part of it first. So I think, I think being a husband-wife couple was, I think, very helpful, because I think, I'll just actually back it up with an instance on why I'm saying that, right? So there was a point in time during the course where I think I'd reached a stage of burnout. And I had not recognized it, because being alpha that you are, you'll be like, listen, I'm strong, I can handle it all and all of that, right? And then Mohit kept telling me, saying that, listen, I think you're burning out, you need to relax. And I was like, of course not. And then I distinctly remember he said, let's meditate together. So he downloaded possibly all the apps that was there. I truly find meditation very boring, because I can't sit still. So I couldn't do that. And then he kept saying, so what he did was he sent me a checklist of 10 things, which said that if you have any of these 10 things, then you're running through burnout. And I had a staggering 9 out of 10.
Oh my gosh.
She was outperforming.
So and with those 9 out of 10, I just sort of reflected back and said, oh shit, I need to do something about it. And I said, okay. And then he said that, why don't you just see a coach, and you see a business coach, so that the business coach can kind of help you get over whatever you're going through.
Yeah. So, sorry to interrupt. This was at what journey?
I think it was about 2.5 years into the Mom's Co. It was about 2.5 years into the Mom's Co. And it came, and what we realized when it came with, with, when you start, you know it all. As you start growing, there's a point in time when professionals start coming in and they know things far better than what you would know, right? You see a sense of losing control. And then to gain back control, you're putting this extra pressure of trying to find it all, so that you can have a conversation with them. And that's the phase that I went through. And for that, with someone who comes with 12 years of experience on one particular field versus you kind of, knowing playing a lot of roles, it's really hard. So what I would do was sit in the night to read up, see some things, speak to experts to kind of figure out my own version of what it should be, right?
Yeah.
And I had to take my journey to understand, saying that the reason I've hired someone is because he knows something more than me. And if he doesn't know something more than me, or she doesn't know something more than me, then I don't really need them. Right? And I think it was a learning curve that I had to do myself, and which is where this business coach really helped me out. So I actually went, and it was very funny because I went to see her, and I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just had like a 9 on 10 on that sheet. I don't even know if that sheet is true.
Mohit is forcing me to do it.
And Mohit is forced me to do it. No, actually not forced. Mohit said, I must come and see you. He spoke very highly of you, so I thought I'd come and do. And she was a business coach who worked with a lot of senior entrepreneurs and professionals from McKinsey. So she was tied up with McKinsey, and that's why Mohit had actually worked with her in the past.
Yeah.
So I was like, he said, I must come and speak to you, so I'll speak to you. And this was her also deciding on whether she wants to take me on board, right? So
she gets to make a choice.
She gets to make a choice, because and she told Mohit that I'll speak to her to tell you whether I will take her on or not, because if she's not ready to go down the path, then there's no point of me coming in, right? Like she has to be open to accepting it as well. And I went to have the conversation with her. 5 minutes into the conversation, I started weeping. yeah, it's not funny, right? And I was like, I don't know what is happening. She was like, that's all right. And then she didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. And I found myself just weeping, and I was like, I don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
And then she said, okay. And then she got more than said, I'll take her on because I think she will be open and we should be able to sort of go deep with her. And I think my 4th session was the most rewarding with her. And I think at the end of that, my family thought I was a different person.
Wow.
Because I was so much at peace. Like I realized there was points in time where everybody in the family was having a conversation. I would be sitting there not listening to everybody because I had something on phone to do and everything. I just learned the art of calming down, being present. And she just helped me regain and learn that better. So I think it's very important to actually talk about mental health. But it's even more important to normalize the conversation, because I remember when I decided to go see this business coach, my father was like, why are you going? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I
you
know.
guys are just too educated. I don't know which world you live in to kind of do something like that. I said, listen, let's just go with an open mind and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I think it was just absolutely brilliant. She just instilled so much peace in me and confidence in me on who I was as a person that I didn't see this need to constantly put out a front, which, I know it all.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, I know it all. And I think just that was hugely rewarding because it just opened up paths for everyone in the company to voice their opinion where I was actually listening to them than trying to contribute. And I think that really shaped the company as well.
That's amazing.
That's very interesting. And, in India, this is a topic most people will not want to talk about, right? I mean, it's so brave of you to go say what you did. And it's so impressive that it helped you. So thank you for that. I think it's a great lesson for other people to realize we all have shortcomings. We all go through phases. We all go through challenges. We all set out to do a lot of things. And when you are set out to do some crazy things like fight a really huge competitor and build a brand from the ground up, and if you're chatting on Insta at 2 a.m. answering, it's going to take a toll on you, right?
And you know what is the most interesting? The first exercise she gave me was where she said, your first exercise is write down 10 points on why you're a good mother. Because there was this constant guilt of not giving time to both Myra and Saina because I was very obsessive on work. So I was like, I don't think I'm a good mom. She says, why do you think you're not a good mom? She says, okay, I want you to write 10 things on why you believe you're a good mother. And I actually took that practice for all women in the company after that. Where people would come and say, why do you think 10 things on why you think you should get the job? Because women often short sell themselves. They would all write those 10 things. And it was so surprising that after writing those 10 things, the power they felt from within is huge. Like I wrote those 10 things down and said, listen, just like 2 hoots to the whole world. I'm awesome. I'm awesome as a mother, right? I may not be going to pick her up from bus every single day, but I haven't missed anything important in her life, so it's all good.
Absolutely.
That's what's so hard for founders, right? And the mental health issue is so important.
Yeah.
So, as I've spoken to people, I think 2-3 things really come together for founders. One is what Malika just spoke about, that you are constantly in a world where you are being judged and everyone is telling you negative stuff about why things will not work. Right? So there's constantly other stuff and external factors putting you down, which you have to come out of. Within the company, as you grow in particular, you don't know shit. Right? You're just winging it and you're trying to figure stuff out, because if people had been figured it out before, you wouldn't have space as a startup, right? There'd be a big company doing it.
Yeah.
So as a founder, you're constantly winging it.
Yeah.
And the third thing is, when you're out in the external world, everything has to be awesome. We have to put up this amazing facade that stuff is amazing, everything is awesome, my team is rocking it, business is rocking it. And for most people, you just don't have someone to have a real conversation with, right? Because parents don't get it, team members you can't talk to, investors are not going to get it from your perspective. So it's very hard. To everyone I say, if you're a founder, at least have enough founder friends with whom you can be completely honest. Right? And if you're going through something, please find a business coach. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'm a big proponent. I've seen Malika go through very positive shifts. Have seen it myself in so many of other cases. So find someone to talk to, right? And actually, if you're a founder and everybody else is also putting up a front, realize they're putting up a front. Right? Everyone's going through the same shit at the same time. No one is awesome at rocking it all the time.
Absolutely. See, startup journey has to have its highs and its lows, right? I mean, if it was so easy, every startup would succeed. It doesn't, right? Most will fail. I mean, when you start out, you know that as a fact of life, that most startups fail. And even the ones who succeed all went through challenges, all went through moments when it almost shut down, right? So, I completely agree with you. And in fact, one of the things, and when we were recording our partner episode, one of us said was exactly this, that we want to be that 2 a.m. friend you can call up, because we've all been, in SenseAI, we've all been operators and entrepreneurs before. So we understand how lonely the journey can be. And you don't want to even share it with your co-founder maybe, because you don't want doubt to suddenly happen, right? I mean, that maintaining the facade even happens internally, right? I mean, to some extent. So finding that person you can trust and talk to, I think, is very critical in the entrepreneur journey.
Mohit, can you share a personal instance? How did you navigate it personally if you went through something during the journey?
For me, it was very different. Actually, I think the big advantage of a husband-wife couple, and in this case with Malika and me, was that we could talk about anything at any point of time, right? So a lot of the struggles around not knowing mental health, etc., all of that I think got sorted because we could just be completely open and honest with each other, which is why I'm a big fan of husband-wife couples. Half my portfolio, I think, is couple founders. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I think if you've navigated life with children, got to a certain stage where you're happy and at peace with each other, you'll figure out a company running. It's much easier than raising kids, right? So I think that. And the other interesting thing in my case was, because I had this entire network of ex-McKinsey friends who were founders, I had lots of people to talk to on any given topic, where we didn't have to show up in a very positive fashion all the time. It was very okay to say, hey, this is not working out, who can help and how can I find help? Which is a very unique network to have. Right? So I think I leveraged and leaned on those friends a lot to get through tough phases.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's so important to rely on other people and don't be afraid to ask for help.
And you said about very interesting on that couple founders piece, right? So what are your other, so I know you've turned from having sold mom's company, now you're starting to become angel investors. So what are the things you look for as an investor apart from couples?
Couples I really like, so that's fun, as I said.
Beginning to sound funny.
Yeah, is it? Okay. Let me rephrase that, we can edit this. I really like couple founders, to be clear. But I think the other thing I really start to value now is founders entering markets that they understand, right? Because at least I think we got lucky. Malika and I entered a space where we didn't do FMCG before, so we had to learn everything, right? From products, manufacturing, R&D, marketing, etc. There's so much for us to learn. We got lucky because we started at a time where there weren't that many other startups in the space. So I think we got a little bit of breathing room. But if we were to start the same thing today, I think someone with that sound of background, having done it before, would be a huge boon, right? Just that network of people you can call to get answers very quickly itself, I think, shortens your journey of problem solving maybe 10x. Right? So I'm a big fan of founders who understand the spaces that they're entering and maybe want to try and attack it differently. The third thing I really look for is, do you have insights? Right? So what I find in most cases is that founders try and enter spaces because they understand it, saying, I understand it, I'll crack it. But then you go down to a next level and say, what is different now? What allows you to create this startup today which is different from before? What's changed in the technology or in the consumer set or in the operating model that allows you to start today? People don't have that. Right? So I'll give you a great example. One of the recent companies I chose to not invest in, which was interesting, was because he said, I want to start a resale model similar to what Misho did, but focused on women in kitty parties, because I think that's the big tier 2, tier 3 market I want to go on to, and I think they will sell to each other. I said, fantastic. How many kitty parties have you attended? He said, 0. I said, then how do you know what's going to fly? Right? It doesn't make sense. So I think that, do you really understand the space that you're getting into?
Yeah.
Beyond that, the funding environment, the team, the market, your model will all evolve, right? I think just the ability to get to a core of what's different now is very important. So I bank a lot on that.
No, I think I really like that piece, right? Because we all look at market, we all look at all the other aspects, right? But as Malika was trying to say, the space she saw was because those products, and you were taking products from outside of India and getting them back here, and obviously that's not a sustainable solution. And what can you do to really solve for that problem? But that delta piece, right? How has the world changed? What is that change which allows you, creates opportunity for you? Being able to articulate that well, understand that well, I think is very, very critical, because just doing the same old things maybe a little better doesn't create a startup, right?
Yeah.
Incremental is not what a startup needs to be. It needs to be transformational, disruptive at some level. So I think that's a fantastic key point for founders to take back from what your investing thesis is. Anything you would like to add to the investing thesis?
So to me, I think it makes a lot of difference on who the founder is as well. And that's one piece that Mo didn't touch about, right? Because you can't be a founder if you're very closed, is what I feel, right? If you're not listening,
like an introvert.
If you're not listening to your consumer, if you're not listening to people who are giving you advice, if you're not listening to your team, if you're not ready to listen to someone, then I don't think you'll make a very good entrepreneur, because there is no way on earth that you can know it all. And that's the rude truth of life, right? Like, no matter how awesome you are, as your company grows, you cannot know operations, HR, marketing, sales, and you cannot do it all also, right? Which is where everyone will come into picture, and you being able to listen to them. And then, you being able to figure out that your role changes very quickly from being an operator to being that visionary. And to be that visionary, you have to constantly keep listening to people to figure out, okay, this is what's not happening right and this is not. So a lot of times that actually we meet founders who are very closed. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but this is awesome. I hear what you're saying, but this is not something we would like to look at. I think this is what we're going to do, right? Those for me are like warning signals saying that, like if you're not open to even listening and you're not listening, then I don't think I want to make that investment, no matter how great the space is.
Lovely. And just because we look at AI, what do you think are the biggest opportunities for AI, as from an investment perspective or from a product perspective, anything?
I think 2-3 big ones. The big one I think you'll see in India is a personal assistant for everyone. Right? We are a nation which is very value driven, and so we end up doing lots of things ourselves. Right? So if you go outside of, I think the top end of the market, like no one has an assistant.
Absolutely.
Right?
We had Kuno, who was our AI generated.
Who's Kuno?
We never had an executive assistant. I had Kono, which was an AI bot that did my calendaring like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm an early adopter of AI. But that sort of stuff, I think digital personal assistants for everyone will be the first big wave that you see. Second is you will start to see companies that are very small but delivering very high value, because a lot of the automated smaller processes which need armies of people, all of that has now gone under AI to under smart people, right? So what would be 100, 200 member team will start coming down to 15, 20 member teams producing similar value. So I'm waiting for that to happen. Third is, I'll give you a great example. We've invested in one company called Ripic, and this is just to open people's eyes. What Ripic does is, they basically figured out that in steel plants and cement plants and so on, very large manufacturing units, a lot of the decision making is done by the person on the line, right? And that person who's today a blue collar worker with, let's say, 15, 20 years of experience, his decisions on what parameters to set during that process can change the EBITDA of those businesses by hundreds of crores, right? And so what Ripic has done is it's said, hey, here there's lots of value to be captured. They've created a tool and a dashboard where the person inputs, and AI supports him in making a decision. Hopefully that helps save companies hundreds of crores, right, in the process parameters. So I think a lot of those in automation that you will start to see in the B2B space. I have one of that. I have one which is doing the same thing for water, right, and water treatment. So a lot of these spaces where you today don't have very high quality workforce, or you're reliant completely on experience of people, I think that will start getting supplanted with, here is an AI who can support you.
I really like that thesis you shared about smaller teams, right? AI will reduce the team sizes required, right? And if you go back and look at technology, I mean, internet did the same thing, cloud did the same thing. The number of, you didn't need those servers, you didn't need in-house IT, so all of that just makes the pace of development of new businesses, of startups and their growth become so much easier. So I love that part of the story so much. I mean, I love all of it, but that part I really, really like so much.
Yeah, and why that's exciting to me, I remember we had this conversation as we were growing at the mom's company. We reached a stage where at some point of time, like Malika said, we got experts in every field, right, to do their jobs. And then we met one of our mentors and we said, what do we do now? We got experts in each of our fields, we're free. She said, no, now your work starts. Right? Because now you have to make sure that all their incentives are aligned, right? They are working together as a team. So your work actually begins and increases in complexity as the team size grows, right? So to me, the notion of a 10-member team, almost a crack football team or a basketball team going out and creating billions of dollars in value is like an ideal North Star where you're really tight, doing very high value work together, which just keeps you bonded. That takes care of so many issues, right? You can pay crazy salaries, people don't want to go anywhere. You can maintain work life, right? Because everyone is supported. You have one-on-one personal connections with people. So romanticizing a little bit of a small organization which is very tightly knit but can still create phenomenal results. Hopefully AI will allow us to do that.
That's amazing. I think that's such a good perspective. So many people are just scared of AI, thinking it's going to take their jobs, but I think it's going to really amplify to support people who are already working, and like getting smaller teams can actually result in, like you said, crazier salaries. So it's going to work in their favor on a lot of levels.
Yeah, you should do this at any point of time. Ask someone from wherever they are in their life, 10 years ago, how many jobs did you not even think existed, right? And how many have just come up? And this is, in the last 10 years compared to AI, not much has changed, right? Mobile and telephony and social media has come up. Just from a systematic change perspective. But just look at the number of jobs that created. I think AI is unknown, which is why people are so scared. We just don't know what its capabilities will be, and therefore will it come after my job? I think it's very hard to imagine what jobs will come up. But a lot of them will come up.
Absolutely. So guys, let's talk about your post-exit mindset. You just did India's supposedly largest, D2C exit for 500 crores, right? So after achieving such a significant exit for the mom's co, how did your mindset shift in terms of entrepreneurship, investing, or even if you're looking to start a new venture now?
It's a very interesting question because both of us have very different answers. You want to go first?
No, I think you have the better one.
So I'm thinking on what to do next because I just missed the whole process. I think it was so much learning, your ability to create an impact, to create a difference in not just a product that you bring to life, but also in the lives of so many people you've touched. I think was just hugely rewarding. So I'm massively missing it. We are in the phase right now where I come up with a suggestion and Mohit shuts it down, saying 5 different things. And one of them is saying that how will AI play a role in this? And there was one in which I just couldn't figure out what, and he was like, see, if there's no AI play, then there is no play. Like it's not your next 10 to 20 year game, so you can't have it there. So yes, I'm actually very at edge trying to figure out what next to do. And that's where it is.
So my quick reaction on that is you and I should have a conversation later.
Yeah.
One-on-one.
Yes.
But Mohit, what's your reaction?
I'm enjoying myself. I am spending time with lots of interesting portfolio companies and building that up. I'm at 25 angel investments now over the last 2 years. Spend deep time with 4-5 of those startups, I think. But that process I really enjoy. To me, it's very eye-opening of just to see what's out there and what people are creating. So that's one. Beyond that, the content piece, I'm really enjoying putting out content and sharing some of our learnings. I think it's new. It's almost like unlearning and relearning from scratch, right? Because haven't done that. Learning how to communicate digitally to a large audience. So that's very new. Other than that, there's like Malika keeps joking, I have this long bucket list, which I'm ticking off for this year, right? So far I've done scuba diving and skydiving and gone to Iceland. And to recover from all of that, I'm going to Vipassana a month from now, right, for the long 10-day meditation retreat. So I'm trying to tick off all the things that I know once we get to something full-time, I won't get the chance to do it.
Amazing.
Nice.
What advice would you give to somebody, an entrepreneur who's experienced success and now contemplating their next steps?
Take your time. Because this is the advice that I have got most often, right?
Yeah.
Because we are so used to that hustle. It's like a drug. It takes, and when you suddenly don't have it, you feel like there's a big lacuna.
Void.
Right? You look at your
Yeah.
calendar and you say, oh shit, what do I do with an empty calendar? Oh my God, I'm wasting my life. And it's very easy to get into that loop. And so the advice I got from people is take your time to adjust to it, because lots of people live their life like this. And then let the answer come to you. Seek it out, but let the answer come to you. So you can't force fit it. That's the advice that I have got from most people. I'm trying hard to adopt it. Malika is not.
He's subtly bringing it up, saying that. See, I keep saying it all the time. But yeah, I think, your perspective in life changes completely once you're going to become a second-time entrepreneur, especially if you've had a successful one before. Because, I think your risk-taking appetite is very high. In the first startup, I remember we sold 2 houses, emptied our bank accounts. Finally, one day I remember having this conversation कौन से अब तो आपको हमें salary देनी शुरू करनी पड़ेगी because we cannot sustain like this anymore, right? Because you're being as thrifty as possible, when you're doing your first startup. You want to be as scrappy as possible when you're doing it. The second time around, and there's this constant play on saying the money is running out or it will run out at one point of time. Your personal wealth I'm talking about, not the professional ones, right?
Okay.
And I think it kind of plays in the decisions you make in life.
Yeah.
Once you've had a successful one, you've got that money in your bank account. And now, if you ask me what do I want to play for, and I think the decision is really hard because what I want to do has to be something really large, right? I have a number in my mind and I'm saying if it doesn't reach that number, I'm not interested in doing it. That was not how Momsco started. Momsco started saying, okay, nobody's solving for it, I will go with it and change the world and I will create that, right? So it was fundamentally very different. Now it's of course very different. I don't know when will that moment come in my life when I'll be like, just that's it. I don't want to listen to any investor anymore. I don't want to listen to Mohit anymore. This is it. I feel for it and I'm going to just start. So I think you will have to get to that stage once after. How much can you think and overthink? Because everything at the end of the day will have a loophole there, right?
Absolutely.
So I think you have to just get to the space of saying that this is it. I feel truly passionate about this and I can spend the rest of my life doing it, without cringing about it. And that's when you just go ahead and get started.
So my only reaction to that is go look at what the Israelis do, right? I mean, Israel is a startup nation and a lot of founders there will have done one startup, then the second and then the third. And they would have sold, each one of them would have been a success. May not be a massive $1 billion exit for each one, but point is not that. The point is it clearly comes to me as if you enjoy the journey. You enjoy being an entrepreneur. That's what you want to do. Then just go out. That's my simple thing. Go out and do it. Yeah. You'll figure it out. How little did you know? You know how much you know now versus what you knew when you started it.
Yeah. So
that's the fun in the journey, right?
Yeah.
So not figuring it all out in the beginning.
That's it. That's what I'm saying. That's my advice to second time founders. I'm yet to follow it myself, but yeah.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is, you want to do the rapid fire first?
Yeah, let's do the rapid fire. So Rahul will take the first questions.
So we have this tradition on the SenseAI show, which is to have a few questions. We'll just quickly ask you, just answer immediately, either one.
You have less than 10 seconds.
Yeah, less than 10 seconds. So, what was your first investment? Ever.
My first investment was I was in TCS, and I was in TCS at the time that it went to IPO.
Okay.
So I had special shares that whatever I applied for, I would get. I got 50,000 rupees worth of shares at the time.
Whoa.
Wow.
It was some 16, 17 lakhs.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So great first investment.
Everything's
downhill after that.
And what age were you when you made that investment?
23.
Wow. And
mine was an FD actually.
Sorry?
Mine was a plain vanilla FD.
No,
I made it very early on. I made it at the age of 10.
Would that be considered investment though?
No, I'm looking for some, like equity. Any form of equity. Mutual fund also works.
So I think my first investment was when we invested in Fable Street.
Okay. And when was that?
About now, 1 year back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely. So, of course, your investment is very young, but I'm sure, and maybe the answer is already given, which was your investment with the highest return? Could be TCS, given
That's the one.
that it's
TCS is the one for now. My investment in the highest return is a Momsco.
Of course.
We put in our blood, sweat, tears, and 20 lakhs of personal money to get started.
Wow.
Great answer on that. Great answer. And so TCS, you've been holding on that initial investment you made. You're still holding on to it.
Yeah,
Wow. So how many years?
20 years almost.
Wow. If you could go back in time and change one investing decision you made, any one, which one would it be and why?
My first change is investment, because I did it completely out of FOMO. Right? I did it because there were friends investing. I said it doesn't matter who the guy is, what category it is, but friends are doing it, so I do it myself. Very quickly I learned that's a strategy to get all of your angel investing to zero. And I think I learned quickly from that one.
Yeah, I think for me, not just look at housing as a place for investment. Right? Not
Lovely.
look at real estate as an investment option. It's very long term, and I think I've just learnt the value of liquidity of money. So that way.
Interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting. Devika, you want to ask the next set of questions?
Yes. Okay. So, what was your startup investment?
Still TBD. My first investment is 2 years old, so we don't know yet. I think I'll wait for 2-3 years to see the cycle play out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
A few of them have gone on to raise at 3, 4, 5 times the last valuation.
Right.
Yeah, so not bad, but we'll see.
Okay. Amazing. Okay. Which sector do you find the most appealing to invest in?
Well, I find consumer very interesting. There's also familiarity with it. I think I understand it very well. So I kind of really love investing in consumer startups.
Got it. Mohit, you?
Same. I like consumer. I think the consumer bent of mine. I don't get B2B as much. The other two themes that I invest a lot in, one is India to the world. I think there's a lot of manufacturing, tech, consumer in India selling to the world, which makes it a very large market.
Yeah.
So there I've invested a little bit. And the third is just climate tech, because I think it's a problem that needs to get solved. So there's a couple of investments in that space.
Perfect. Okay. Are you an LP in any fund?
Yes, one fund.
No.
Okay. Currently, what's the most promising international market for you?
US, always.
You?
US.
Okay.
It's just a very
Has to
large
be,
market.
yeah.
It's a very large cohesive market.
It's very easy to create, businesses of a size that you would struggle to create in India. It's just because of the size of the country.
Got it. Okay. And just to switch it up a little bit, just throw you off. What's your favorite type of music?
Oh, I like Bollywood music, like hardcore. Yeah.
Bollywood.
Bollywood.
And Mohit, you too?
No.
No. I listen to jazz and rock and R&B, and we now have a music system in the house. So
Yeah.
it's like every time I play something, I'm like, how can I introduce my kids to newer music? So now they hum along to Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm very excited. Like, okay, they're on the right path.
So I'm not allowed access on Mohit's Spotify account.
Of course, it will
Yeah,
just
like-
ruin the algorithm.
Exactly.
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 So everybody has
He's
their own
like-
thing. Don't mess with my account.
Yeah, so we have multiple Spotify accounts because he's like, no, you can't be using mine
Yeah.
for sure.
And very soon your kids will be introducing you to music. That thing will
That's
switch
already
very,
already
very,
happening.
yeah.
It's
already
already
happening.
happening.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
shift to multiple Spotify accounts happened when Spotify does that year-end in review.
Yeah.
And
Mohit's
my
most-
top 10 were Taylor Swift and Katy Perry and all these guys. I'm like, what happened? This is not the music I listen to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's such an incredible story. Okay, so we have this closing tradition where our last podcast guest asked the question to the next podcast guest. So our last guest was Rajiv Makhni, and we'll play his question for you guys to answer. So Rahul, you have it on your WhatsApp. If you can quickly show these guys.
So Malika, I'm going to ask a question which, on the face of it sounds pretty cliched, but I'd like a hand on your heart kind of answer. So I know that Mohit, had a pretty cushy job, took a big risk, and then the two of you together have really struggled to create what you did. So if you and Mohit could go back at that time when he was taking that decision to leave that cushy job, would you really right now tell him to, listen, let's do it? Or everything that's happened in your life, you'd say, listen, no, we're not doing this all over again.
Yeah, so if I go back in time and if I had to ask Mohit to leave his job and come back and do it with me, I think I would have still asked him to do it, because I don't think entrepreneurship can be done part-time, right? So, and we were doing something which was so new to us, which we had never done before. Both of us are not having FMCG background. I was in finance. He did his consulting with different backgrounds. And I think there was a learning curve that we went through on everything from how to make, to what to do, to how to start a company, to understanding how to evaluate people, how to evaluate a product. And I think if he would have missed a large part of that journey, he wouldn't have been so excited as he was when he saw the product for the first time in his hand, right? Like he still talks about,
Sorry.
yeah. I think he's still.
Fine.
Why don't you drink some water?
Khatam ho gaya.
Oh no, guys, can we have like a
Okay,
quick
no,
talk?
no,
It's okay,
go for it.
I think the excitement he had when he held the product for the first time in his hand, and I think that was the day when he truly connected with the Mom's Co. And I don't think that would have happened had he missed the initial part of the journey where we were deciding on what to do, what to create. If he would have missed out on the journey of making the trips all the way to the manufacturer, sitting on the manufacturer's plant, I don't think if you would have done it, you can't. And most importantly, I don't think entrepreneurship can be done part-time. So yeah, I would have asked him to do it again. From the beginning.
That's really amazing. Yeah, great. That's really great to hear.
Yeah. Mohit, anything you'd like to add if you had to do all of this all over again? Would you?
No, I think absolutely the right thing. We were at a point of time where I had been aching to be an entrepreneur for a while.
Yeah.
Right? We had finally had a great idea. I think that we really wanted to solve. And thanks to the background, there was a confidence that ये नहीं चलेगा तो job तो मिल जाएगी 2-3 साल में, right? Which is rare. I think we had that confidence at the point of time. So yeah, absolutely, do it all over again.
Yeah, that's very interesting because that brings me to the point on saying that, what we did, because he had left his job and we had no source of income coming into the house for the first 2 years, we'd actually made a checklist. And this was an advice we got from one of our investors, our angel investors. And what he said was, why don't you list down a set of 3 things that if you have to let go of that, it would really hurt you. Because from his sense, the reason why he asked was, he said it starts impacting the company if you don't have those 3 things. And for you, you'll have clarity saying that, if we hit those, it's time to shut. Because once you start doing something, it becomes really hard for an entrepreneur to accept the fact that this is not going anywhere and it's not going to be successful, right? But you know it. But you are like constantly like trying. And there has to be a point in time when you realize it's not going to become any bigger. And I need to take a call. And I think those 3 things that you wrote in the beginning kind of just help you figure that out.
Yeah.
So we did actually lay down those things saying that if this happens, one of us will go back to a regular job and then the other
What were
one will
those 3
continue.
things?
So it was very basic. The one of them was for me saying that if I had to leave my house and sort of move to a much smaller space, I wouldn't be comfortable doing that because for me a large part of where I live defines who I am as a person. So then it would have kind of got down to a questioning on who I am, which I was not comfortable with. The second was that if I had to get my daughters out of the school they were going in because I can't fill their school fees, I would question the decision because it's not that you didn't have the luxury of sending your child to the best school possible when you were doing your regular job, right? But here you are. So that means you are, as a parent, making a choice of giving them something lesser just because you want to go pursue your dreams, right? Which didn't seem right. So that was the second one. Wow. And third was that if I ever felt that, I just couldn't take it anymore in terms of the fact saying that it started playing a lot on my own health, where I started questioning who I am as a person. That's when I would sort of decide on not doing it anymore.
That's amazing.
So those were the 3 things, and I think
Thank you
they
so
were
much
like
for sharing
relatively
that.
basic, but I think it was hugely impactful. We actually more than I sat down and we did this exercise in the beginning saying these 3 things are like non-negotiable, and then we kind of take a decision.
I had an add-on that I want good coffee. I can survive without good coffee. So if I had to really give up my coffees, I'd be in a lot of pain. So that was my only add-on.
So what, you were grabbing like $5 Starbucks coffee every day?
No, just like decent quality coffee in the house. And that's it. It wasn't expensive, but it was just one of those things, right?
It
just
was a
makes you
coffee
feel like
machine in
this
the
is who you are.
office. And the first thing saying, before the printer, a coffee machine came. I remember the printer was a house printer that went in which you would print shipping labels.
Yeah.
But the coffee machine came as a company purchase.
Actually,
So,
in every new office that we went to, I was responsible for getting the coffee machine and the coffee in it. Yeah. It just made me a happier person, and then everybody else around me was happier.
My gosh, incredible.
That's
what
so
an
interesting.
amazing story. Yeah. Rahul, any ending thoughts?
No, I love the stories you all have shared, and thank you for sharing them with us and with other founders. I think there's a lot to be learned from the journey. I think this putting down that list right in the beginning of what compromises not to make is important. You're completely right in saying that founders can just go on doing it well beyond the time that, the journey had actually ended, but they just don't realize it, right? So I think that's a very, very critical thing.
I had goosebumps when you shared the whole story about, like that guy not looking you in the eye when he was talking to you. And I think a lot of people resonate on how important it is to take a stand for yourself. And thanks for doing what you guys did. Thanks for building.
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much,
Yeah, it was fun.